back.
Brad Jenkins.
We're back. We have theme music. What do you think about the theme
I
music? The theme music
liked
is
it.
probably happening right now as I'm speaking, you
You
know?
gave me one option and I said it was great, and here we are.
Did I give you not more than one option? I think you were like, this is great.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, applying our standard rigor to.
Look, there's one thing that people know about Twig and Jenkins is that we are thorough. So thorough.
So thorough.
So thorough. Welcome to Twig and Jenkins, where two White House besties became politically codependent podcasters. I am Brad Jenkins.
I'm
That is,
Carrie Twig.
there we go. And this is the Twig and Jenkins podcast. Where do we start, Twig? Because you made an outline.
I tried my hand at outlining. It was very fun. We're supposed to, well, because one of the things we have yet to figure out our pacing, right? We've yet to figure out, we tend to spend a long time, I think, on one or two stories that we become obsessed with and then breeze through a bunch of other things. So I'm trying to apply a little bit more like standard set times. But these are the things that I have time for in between surfing and yoga when I'm in LA and not on the East Coast running around seeing people. Speaking of which, I will be in New York and DC next week.
Are you going to
Stoked.
come with me? I sent you an email. There's a thing in New
I
York.
am not, I don't
Oh,
think. I think I'm going to be in DC that night because I have meetings starting early on Thursday.
got it.
And I don't know that I
We
want to
may
take the
we
train in the
may miss each
morning.
other. We may miss each other because I
But
think
you're
I have
coming
to.
back on Thursday.
No, I may not have to. I have to go to LA now. It's a whole other thing. We'll talk.
What are
Disaster.
you saying?
I know.
Oh my God. Okay, once again. All right. So this is what you led with in our little pre-talk. This is what you should have been talking about in the pre-talk.
There
Anyway,
was there was a judgment that came down from the Eighth Circuit that greatly impacts the Voting Rights Act, and we have to go make a video about it in LA next week. So anyway, we'll talk. We'll
okay, great.
discuss. We'll
All right.
discuss. But the first item on our outline, Twig, and I got a few texts on this as well, is this I feel like this is the first big palace intrigue, hot gossip, hot tea. What do we is this what it's not a memoir. What do we call these things that come out after campaigns? What is the correct term for these books?
Well, it's hard because neither Jake Tapper nor that other dude were actually in the White House, right? So it's just like reporting with a
Yeah,
very salacious headline. What's it called? The new
it's called, I think it's called Biden Deception, or it's called like the greatest deception.
Original Sin.
Oh, Original Sin.
Yeah.
That's a bad movie from the 90s, I think. Original Sin. That sounds like a Skinamax film.
The
Um,
subtitle's also equally damning. What is the name of this? Original Sin, President Biden's decline, its cover up, and his disastrous choice to run again. Brutal.
it's brutal. Lots of thoughts on Alex Thompson, just having run across him. Yeah, he was kind of in the crosshairs of my life for a brief moment when the Biden administration was getting going. Not the greatest reputation in town, you know, just trying to find anything on anyone. I mean, granted, he was writing playbook. He's writing like the West Wing playbook. So, um, you know, but what are your thoughts? I want your thoughts on some of the excerpts, some of the reporting. It's sort of led news for a good 48 hours this week. It was a slow news week, I think, for that to lead and dominate.
Yeah. Which is crazy considering everything that's happening in the world. But I mean, listen, I think that this is one of those classic things where I'm sure a lot of this is true. And I don't doubt
Yeah,
that a lot of it is true. I also
yeah,
think that it gets really dicey when motive is applied retrospectively to decisions and choices that people that aren't you made, right? And so it's really easy for you to look back at Mike Donilon or Steve Ricchetti or any of the people in the White House and apply a motive to the choices that they made that may or may not have been there. My assumption is that, and I think we would have said this even early in the pod, having been around the president, having seen the president both years ago in the Obama administration, but also since he was president in his own administration, like he definitely slowed down. I'm sure
Yeah.
that there were days when he was not the Joe Biden that many people thought that they were voting for or remembered from the past. And then there are also times like the debate, like we saw it, he like what was happening in that debate.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there were also times when he was on it and he was the sort of brilliant policy mind and experienced hand and elder statesman that we'd known him to be. And so do I think that there was but it's hard when there's words that are so loaded like cover up, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't want to, I reject that sort of framing. But yeah, I mean, of course, these guys were protecting their interests. Of course, the president wanted to be the president again, rightly or wrongly, and I think probably wrongly. I think he should have stayed committed to being a one-term president. I think every sort of decision and choice that they made should have been made through a commitment and a determination to be a one-term president, but setting up who would be the next Democratic president. Um, and so, you know, the president also came out and did a round of interviews, I think, in anticipation of like early pushback against this book. And I don't know how effective those were, to be perfectly honest. I don't know how
Right.
effective those appearances were. He had like Jill was there, was the second lady or the first lady was there for many of them. Um, she sort of bailed him out a couple times when he seemed to lose his thread. And I don't know that they actually bolstered the case that he was in presidential shape. I also, though, loved that he was like breaking presidential protocol and being like, what is Trump doing? You know what I mean? Like most presidents commit to be totally silent their first year out of office. Um, no one was really covering it from that angle, but I did love a little petty Joe Biden moment where he was talking shit about Donald Trump.
Love that. We love when our world leaders are petty. It's exciting.
Absolutely. Well, at this
Yeah.
point, I mean, at this point in the matrix, what difference does it make? What did you think?
So I only read a couple of the articles, and the ones that came across my feed were the most salacious headlines, right? It was like The Guardian or TMZ or like whatever, whatever most gossip version that you're gonna get. I mean, look, I think that I'm just skeptical in general with this whole enterprise. I think the people that, these headlines and I think the people quoted all have motives. I think that clearly Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, Alex, by the way, had a book deal to like dig up the dirt on the Biden White House. And then it got pulled because there was no dirt on the Biden White House. We like lost his deal. And then thankfully, Biden being too old to run
Interesting.
for president is now a cover up. And so now he has a deal again with Jake Tapper. So that just sort of, again, like
Interesting.
it sort of just clouds, in my opinion, the sort of the motivation. And also it's like you're already sort of writing the dirt before there's even dirt, right? Like that's sort of what we knew. And there wasn't even enough dirt when he first started writing this book for there to even be a book. So that's sort of number one. Number two, and look, these are also people I love. So Pluff, who I worked for in the Obama White House, I still think is one of the greatest campaign mastermind geniuses. He's like the Bill Belichick of ground, community organizing and knocking doors and voter contacts, et cetera, especially with delegate math. Pluff is like the lead quote in the Guardian piece. Of course he's going to throw Biden under the bus, right? Like there's all of these vested interests in shitting on our guy Joe to make you look good, right? And that includes everyone that worked on the Kamala campaign. That also includes people who worked for Joe Biden who are now saying, well, he should have been the big man. He should have stepped down, right? So I
I
don't
mean,
know.
Donlin came out and was like, it was madness. He stepped down. There's no way he should have stepped down. He would have won. And I was just like, ooh.
There was still some loyalty,
Ugh.
but the other part about it all, right? Again, this is why I'm like emoji shrug to this whole thing. And I'm generally emoji shrug to all of these books that come out after, like Game Change, like Halpern's thing that became like an HBO movie. Like, here's the thing. When you work at the White House and you're working for a president, your job is to serve that president. You can't tell me that Ronald Reagan wasn't fucking fading in his days. You weren't telling me
Totally.
George W. Bush didn't know what the fuck he was talking about 90% of the time. And essentially, Cheney was running the West Wing every single day, right? Like, every presidency has pros and cons. Was Joe Biden the best that we could have thrown up against Donald Trump in this past election? Clearly, no. Clearly, no. Should he have stepped down earlier? Probably. But is it like some vast cover up? No, it's not.
Right.
It's just people have a job to do. They wake up every day, they're serving this guy. To your point, he has good days, he has bad days. And it makes it seem very provocative. It makes it seem, you know, like an HBO movie when you call it some, vast conspiracy. He was old. He should have dropped out. There are multiple people that said he should have dropped out. He is the president of the United States. He's the only person that decides whether he
Yeah.
drops. It is what it is.
You bring up a good point around the Reagan of it all though, because of course this dynamic has been at play and at work in other presidencies. And the reality is, one of the things that one of my perennial, I've now said it, I think, in every podcast, one of the things that just like, infuriates me about how Democrats are behaving in this moment or in this era is like a fundamental lack of acceptance about what is actually happening. Like it's as
Yeah.
though we have not accepted the reality of how politics works. And so I get it. I get that Ronald Reagan, you know what didn't exist when Ronald Reagan was president? The internet. You know, it didn't
Yes.
exist when George W. Bush was president. Social media. Like
Yes.
we live in a different world and you cannot get away with the same level of things. You cannot
Agreed.
coverage is fundamentally different. The level of respect, the level of deference from the fourth estate, from the press to the president is fundamentally different. The willingness of staffers to talk publicly is fundamentally different. And so there seems to be in the portions of this book that I've read over and over and over again this sort of pathological refusal to acknowledge that what they are doing is a strategy for a bygone era,
Yeah.
and that they are going to be able to get away with things or going to be able to perpetuate a version of reality that would hold up really well in the 80s and the 90s and maybe even the early 2000s, but certainly isn't going to hold up now. And it's like when that kind of misjudgment or misreading or miscalibration of the situation happens, it's then really easy. You really expose yourself to being interpreted as being nefarious. Because if I'm on the outside, I'm looking at you make this like totally illogical decision.
Right.
I have to accept that either you're dumb when everything is telling me that you're not dumb because you are obviously really smart, you're very accomplished, you're working in a very complicated place surrounded by some of the smartest people in the world, or that you're trying to lie to me and trying to pull a fast one. When really, I think it's like this sneaky third option of just like you are not appropriately calibrated to reality. But it's just such an unforced error, and it's going to be such a stain, I think, on President Biden's legacy that was already choppy, right? He already had a bunch of stuff to overcome, and I think has received a level of scrutiny that a lot of national figures have managed to escape. But this is this is gonna this is not great.
This is a tough one. I think that you and I talked about this ad nauseum during our Zoom, where we're Zooming again here, but like during our iPhone Zoom days, um, during the campaign, and like the will he or will he not drop out. I think if there is a Aaron Sorkin-esque story, screenplay, or stage adaptation of all of this, I think it really comes down to Joe Biden. Time and time again, people kept telling Joe Biden that he can't do it. He can't do it. He can't do it. Whether it was President Obama bypassing Joe Biden, giving the mantle to Hillary Clinton, whether it was during the primary, no one believing that he could win against 15 younger, more diverse, more progressive candidates, whether it was, during the general election where people were like, how is Biden going to win against Trump when he's hiding in his bunker in the basement during COVID and he's not doing rallies and he's not reaching people and he's sitting there in his bunker. And meanwhile, he just proved everyone wrong. And I think what ends up happening is you have a big chip on your shoulder. And I think he entered the presidency with a big chip on his shoulder. I'm reminded of that New York Times
Yeah.
editorial board. Do you remember that? Where I think the HBO did this like series on the interviews with all of the candidates and the hubris of the New York Times editorial board to be like, you shouldn't run. People don't like you, you know? That is where Joe Biden was feeling every single day during that primary. And he felt
Yeah.
when he was vice president with Obama, people
Yeah.
just doubted him. And
Yeah.
so that's in the back of his mind throughout all of this. So when people are telling him, you can't win again, you're too old, like drop out, he has this huge chip that's like, fuck you. That's what
Yeah.
you told me before. And I proved you wrong. I'm going to prove it wrong again. And, look, unfortunately, you and I talked about the Democratic Party's bench. It's not deep. We keep saying it's deep. It's not deep.
I
And
keep saying it's deep. You keep saying it's not deep.
I don't think it's deep. It wasn't deep. It wasn't deep when Biden could have or should have dropped out. Certainly not deep now. I don't care what
I
anyone says. It's not. And it was
Well, that'll
less
make
deep
for a great
then.
podcast. I don't care what anyone says.
I don't
That
care what
makes for a
anyone says.
great
It's not deep.
two-hander.
And every poll, every single poll, yes, showed the American people think Joe Biden should drop out. But then they're like, all right, who should replace him? No,
Yeah.
there was no one that
First
was
of
like,
all, first of
that's the
all,
guy,
first
you
of
know?
all, first of all, that is a crazy data point that is a crazy data set to try and draw from. So I'm just gonna set that if we're gonna be in the spirit of not caring what each other says, I'm just gonna set that whole thing aside. But I think that there are going to be a lot of people who are. We did this in the last episode. We named 8 people who we think are credibly going to run for president. Like that is going to happen. They still have years to be able to build themselves up and build a bunch of runway in order to run. Like it's going to be fine. The bench is sufficiently deep where we are going to have 47 people run for president, and it's going to be painful and exhausting.
It's gonna be awful.
And yeah, but we'll get through it. It'll be fine. One thing that this is reminding me of, though,
Wow.
is and another place that I think that we are miscalibrated as a party around reality is what's unfolding at the DNC and the
Oh yeah.
way that David Hogg is maybe going to get kicked out of his vice chairmanship at the DNC because he is offering to spend money on people who are challenging incumbents. And I've worked at the Ohio Democratic Party, much discussed. I hoped everyone listened to my appearance on the Pinot and Politics pod this week with my former boss, former Ohio Democratic Party chairman Chris Redfern. but I also work at the DNC. And so I'm really well versed and I came up through the party and I understand that we have a bias towards protecting incumbents. And I think that is actually extraordinarily damaging to the future of the party when we are what is happening?
Sorry.
When we are
Nelly knocked over my camera. It's totally cool. Totally cool, Nelly.
when we are totally lost my train of thought. But in an era when we have to restore a lot of trust, I think that the whole Biden thing is actually super damaging to the Democratic Party, and at a time when our brand was already suffering. And we have to restore trust, we have to rebuild a brand, and I think that we need to, like, be open to the idea that just because you were here 2 years ago doesn't mean you get to stay. And if people
Yeah.
want their seat, then they should reapply or run for their seat, and we should be encouraging primaries. We should be encouraging, um, all manner of, like, ways for people to earn their place. But you
Yeah.
disagree.
I know. This is weird. I think we switched places this pod where I just defended Joe Biden somehow. I don't know how that happened. And then look, it's very rare where you will find me defending the Democratic National Committee. I think
Yeah.
that it's been so poorly run. You and I talked about it. We talked about the DNC chair race and that process. Um, the thing with David, here's my thoughts on it, which is my perspective on it is, Twig and I used to work in the Obama White House. One of my jobs at the Obama White House was I was the liaison to the Progressive Infrastructure. So all of the leftist groups, we didn't call them leftists back then. We just called them progressive organizations. John Carson and I would deal with all of these groups. We would deal with executive directors, funders, boards, donors, and they all sort of wanted input, access, some kind of halo effect from the White House to raise money, et cetera. The thing that always happened time and time again, where people would come to the White House and they would say, "Hey, I have an idea to start a new group." And then we would say, "Okay, what's the idea?" Right? Because the thing about DC is there are thousands of groups, thousands. And there are hundreds of very good groups. And it's a sort of like race and a just crab in a bucket battle for funding, for relevance, for impact. It's like I feel like the progressive infrastructure spends more of their time fighting each other than fighting the other side for money, for like their identity, for like anything, press, like name a thing. David runs to be the vice chair of the DNC. I was very excited by that, right? Like, I think, again, like we all know March for Our Lives, we all know the need to have a youth voice when it comes to the Democratic Party. We know we shedded so many voters when it came to this past cycle, particularly young men. I don't know. It's like you can't have it both ways, in my opinion, right? When you are running to represent the Democratic National Committee, what you are doing ostensibly is you're putting on a shirt that says Democrats. And when you're putting on a shirt that says Democrats, your number one job is to elect Democrats. Your number one priority is to beat Republicans. It's to look at the field, see where we can win, where we can beat Republicans, and spend all of your time and money and effort to recruit great candidates to beat Republicans. Do you know why? Because right now, Democrats do not have a single lever of power anywhere. We're fucked. We suck across the board. We have no power. So every day you should be waking up, if you're wearing that Democrats shirt, every day you should be waking up and saying, how are we beating this Republican? How are we making this Republican look stupid? How are we gonna like take this one out or that one out? That's what you do when you sign up to be the vice chair of the DNC. Twig and I were texting before the call, and I was like, the way I thought of it when I was watching it, I was like, there are Mets fans that focus on who's playing bad, and there are Mets fans who focus on how are we supporting the team. And this is a very bad analogy, but for a Mets fan who watches every single game, this is the one I've got. If you're going to sign up to be the vice chair of the New York Mets, the first thing you do is not say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start an organization to get rid of all of these players for the New York Mets. You know, if you wanted to do that, go do that. But you can't have it both ways. And so the two things I would say to David is, I think that if you want to start an organization to do that, I think there's a really good one. It's called Justice Democrats. You might want to Google them. AOC came from the Justice Democrats who primaried Joe Crowley, Cori Bush primary people. Like, there's a really great organization that has real roots, real funding, and real experience in doing the work. So if that's really what you care about, maybe that's what you should do. This seems to me like the dude wants to go on Bill Maher and give him like a fist bump and like pump up his own profile, because it's one or the other. If it's like you really want to hold accountable shitty Democrats, go do that. You can't say I'm going to hold account shitty Democrats, but then also my number one job is to beat Republicans. The last thing I'll say.
I actually disagree. Okay.
The last thing I'll say. No. Let me finish. The last thing I'll say. You can also. It's a false choice to say, you know, just because you are inspiring people to run against shitty Democrats, older Democrats, you don't also believe that that leads to us winning in a general election. But I've not seen that from the comments that David has made. 90% of incumbents win, right? Like, we just know that as a statistic. I think that young people, particularly young people of color that run primaries, like our friend Morgan Harper and others, it's really important, because when you have people in office for 20, 30 years, what ends up happening is a congressional district atrophies. No one is registering people to vote. No one is excited about the process itself. So by the time you get to the general election, turnout becomes very low because the person isn't doing a very good job in their district. But again, Carrie Twigg, it's all about priorities right now. And while I think that there should be healthy accountability for shitty Democrats, 100% there should be that. Pick a job. You can't have both. Can't do all the things.
I disagree for two reasons. One,
Okay.
well, I had two things to say. One, I think you're mad at David for getting his ass handed to him by Charlie Kirk. So we'll set that aside. I think there's a little bit of misplaced frustration. But two, I also am Bill
anyone
Maher.
who goes on Bill Maher, I have such skepticism over anyone that goes on Bill Maher. If you go on Bill Maher, I don't trust you. Bill Maher sucks, y'all. I don't know why. And the people that he has on all suck. It's, again,
so there's that.
These people.
Okay.
Go for it.
So here's what I would say though, is I actually think that I don't find the two things compatible. If your job is to if your job is to beat Republicans, there's multiple ways to do that. Yes, it's about actually unseating them, but it's also about building a better vision for the party and building a better brand for the party that enables a regular voter who is sort of coming into the fold to like find Democrats reasonable again. Third, Democrats in safe districts are the Democrats who can take the most risks. And so those Democrats need to really maintain and be party stalwarts, right? Nancy Pelosi was so effective because she could take wild risks that people in other competitive seats couldn't. She could be so far to the left, she could be so immoderate and so whatever that because she could do so from a relative place of safety. And yet we have a lot of Democrats in office who are safe in their seat but have gotten so comfortable and have gotten so tired that they're actually undermining the brand of the party and making it much more difficult for Democrats to get elected than they are helping. I would argue that people like Chuck Schumer are making it more difficult to get Democrats elected around the country than they are making it easier. And so, if the party really wants to restore some confidence and integrity to voters, then challenging the dominion of people who for no other reason are there because of incumbency, I think that is actually a massive, important branding exercise. Using AOC, I think, is the perfect example. She had to scrape to get that seat. And then within what, 6 years, 8 years, she's turned into one of the most viable, one of the most central and important figures in the Democratic Party. And we did nothing to help her get there.
Well, we
Like
did though.
the
My point
Democratic
is there
Party,
was
not
an
the party
infrastructure
itself,
there.
not the party
That's what the
itself,
Justice
right?
Democrats are there for. That's what the Justice Dems are there for, is my point.
But I
Right?
hear you, but my argument would be that the official Democratic Party, if you are running as a Democrat, the official position of the Democratic Party should be neutrality as opposed to favoring incumbency. You want your seat, earn it. What's the problem with that? Why would we be getting involved? Why would there be a problem? Why would we inherently just defend an incumbent in a Democratic primary when they're running against other Democrats?
Well, I mean, I'll put it this way. You're right. I hate when the D-Trit wades into primaries. I hate it. But again, it's a matter of priorities. Sure, I don't want the D-Trit to like go out and defend some shitty Orange County Democrat and they were like voting mostly with Republicans. Like that's a waste of time. But also, like I said, we are at such a disadvantage right now, Twig, when it comes to these upcoming midterms for sure, and the Senate, also across the board, right? Governors' races, attorneys general races. Chuck Schumer, I don't think is a fair example because what ends up happening here is that, and I'm only gonna like back into this because you had mentioned sort of the safe districts, but the way that our maps are drawn because of gerrymandering, and thank God for Marina Jenkins and Eric Holder who are trying to fix this, but like there are gerrymandered districts in states like Ohio. There are gerrymandered
Oh yeah.
districts in states like Kansas. And so you can't necessarily say, all right, if you are in a safe seat, you have to be the most leftist like there's some like rubric around like the policies that you should support based off of the level of support that you get in your district. Because I can guarantee you, Andy Kim's district, which is not gerrymandered, right, is very
Well, it's
different.
statewide district.
Yeah, no, I mean when he was running in Congress, or someone who's running in Ohio or Iowa is going to be very different than someone running in New York. And we just have to. Here's my thing. Right now, a Democrat is a Democrat, and if your constituents
That's
are
not true.
voting for you,
Right now, an incumbent Democrat is inherently treated differently than a Democrat. A Democrat is not a Democrat.
well, an incumbent Democrat meaning what? Meaning what though?
Like whether or not you get access to the voter file, whether or not you get access to donor lists, whether or not you get put up to be on certain media outlets, whether or not you get access to
Yeah,
email
because you've
lists, whether or not
won.
you get candidate recruitment. So that's what
And
primaries are
but
for.
like
Why
what
even
are
bother to have primaries then?
I think primaries are really important, of course, but again, what we're talking about here is if you run, Carrie Twig, you're going to go back home, you're going to run for Congress, you win. Why shouldn't you have access to all of those things? Why shouldn't you be building relationships with your party and like trying to reach more people and trying to build out your profile? Like we sort of
You
we're getting
should.
caught
But
we're
I'm
getting caught in the
saying
sauce of like, yes, it's very hard to primary people. 90% of incumbents, not just at the congressional level, across all like school boards, city council, governors, 90% of incumbents, not just 90% of Democratic incumbents, 90% of Republican incumbents. That's just the way things work, right? And
Because of
so,
how the party works, Brad, because at the county, yeah, I'm telling you, this was my job. I was the political director of the Ohio Democratic Party. If you were a seated office holder, I could
right.
give you access to information. And if you were someone who was challenging a sitting Democrat, even though you were a registered Democrat, were organizing your community, were doing your thing, I could not give you anything. I wasn't even supposed to talk to you.
You
I'm
can
telling
still
you.
access that. I mean, there's ways in which primary candidates can still, through Van, still purchase anyone who wants to run for office can still
Through
have
them.
access to the voter file. Like that is a possibility. That happens all of the time. What I'm saying is we've got like the house is on fire. Everything is on fire, right? If we need more Democrats to win, period on the list of things right now, right? Like the Voting Rights Act just got gutted, right? Like people are getting deported and thrown off the streets every day, like all this stuff. On the list of things right now, David going on Bill Maher and saying stupid shit and saying he's going to start a new group to like go after Democrats and then also being the DNC vice chair. My point is pick a thing because I don't want, in my opinion, we need better spokespeople for the Democratic Party right now. We don't need more spokespeople saying shitty things about the Democratic Party. We've got enough of that. We've got enough podcasts. We've got enough. We got Ezra Klein and fucking Derek Thompson out here talking about abundance. Like, we've got enough critics of how shitty Democrats are. If you're gonna wear the Democratic shirt, wear the fucking Democratic shirt. There are other people who can do that job much better, in my humble
I
opinion.
think the
And
reason, part of the reason
don't
why we
let
have so
Charlie
many
Kirk clown
critics.
you the next day, which is what happened. Do not let Charlie Kirk clown you. It's embarrassing. Do not go on Bill Maher and say the reason why Democrats didn't win is because we like men just want to have sex and like what are we talking about here? Right? Like we've lost the thread. If David was doing a very good job of communication and also saying we need to like be thoughtful about accountability and primarying, great. Does he need to start a new organization on top of it? No. Help the Justice Democrats. Bring the Justice Democrats into the fold with the DNC. You know what I mean?
I would be super into that. I would be super into that. Give your $20 million to Justice Democrat. I don't care about how the
Yeah.
infrastructure of it works, but I think that David is right to suggest that our incumbency bias is a liability, especially in this moment.
I look again, not to use Republicans as an example of anything good in any shape or form, but like at this moment, speaking of Nancy Pelosi, at this moment, you know what Nancy Pelosi wants? If we actually had like a good majority or minority leader right now, no shots to Hakeem Jeffries. She wants fucking numbers. And if you want numbers, that's what your eye on the ball is going to be. And if you're a coach of a team, you're not going to spend all of your time shitting on your own players. You're going to spend all of your time lifting up the players that you already have. There's only a certain number of hours in a day. You know what I mean? And look, like I said, I love fucking Justice Democrats. If David wants to support Justice Dems, go do it. But I don't no, I don't think his appearance on Bill Maher was good. I don't think these headlines are good. I
I
don't
don't,
think that this
I
narrative
don't
right
disagree
now
with you. You're
that
so mad about that.
Democrats are somehow the problem in this moment is
You're
helpful.
so mad about Bill Maher and
I
Charlie
don't.
Kirk. Okay, but here's the thing. All right, we have to move on because I have
Okay.
another call in 20 minutes. But I am gonna take the last point, which is you brought up the Republicans. What you are missing, what you're missing is the Republicans actually completely allowed their party to be hijacked through primary processes starting in 2009 with the Tea Party. And within less than 20 years, they have been able to advance policy that they've been working on for 50 years because of it. And so we are living in the midst of a cultural revolution that has been won on the backs of political primaries. It's just not ours. But the
Yeah, but the
Republicans
RNC
have
wasn't
been
supporting that
able.
though. But the RNC wasn't supporting like Marjorie Taylor Greene or like all of these wackos. Like the RNC was doing exactly what the DNC was doing. You know what I mean?
And
That's
look
my
what
point. Like,
happened.
if we want to have a really powerful left, Do that. Go do that. Like, that's a really important
They
job.
were, first of all, they were much more hospitable to it than you'd think. They really were. I mean, the Republicans were much more embracing of the Tea Party and of the far right because they were doing their dirty work. Mitch McConnell was totally empowering all of them. Like they were Reince Priebus, like all of those Republican leaders were completely empowering the Tea Party because
It
that's
depends.
what they wanted. So it's total. So it actually it's not what we're doing.
I think it's case by case. I think Trump coming into power changed the narrative because then it became about Trump, right? And so
Sure.
right now,
But
it's
all
not
of
even
that, the
about
ground was
RNC.
set for all of that.
Yeah, it's not even about the Republican Party anymore. It's your loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump, right? Like that is
Sure.
almost the number one dominant feature of all of these primaries, right?
But it doesn't change the
It's
fact
like
about how they
it's
got
very
there.
cookie cutter. Are you a Trump person or are you not a Trump person? And the people that aren't Trump people, they're going uphill, you know?
Right. But it also, but like they've overturned Roe. They're overturning 75 years worth of environmental protections. They just gutted the Civil Rights Act. They've done all of these things. They've put so many judges in place. They have literally been able to reshape the country based on the fact that they were that they replaced their party standard bearers with people from the fringe of their party
I mean, like Mitch McConnell's still there. I mean, like the elders of the party, for the most part, are still there. And
because
the
they
other part
enabled
about
it
it is
because
like,
they enabled it
hmm, look, there are very loud fringe Republican members of Congress. There are very loud fringe Republican senators. I I don't necessarily agree with the notion that, you know, the the reason why all of this happened was because Republicans were just like, fuck it, let's just
well that's
let
not what I'm saying either. I'm not okay. Jesus, come on. I'm trying to offer a nuanced point. Anyway, you watching the NBA playoffs?
every night. I mean, it's speaking of drama, it's not quite David Hogue. Is it Hogue or Hogg? Who knows? Who knows? Bill Maher drama. But your Cavs, I feel really bad
Oh,
about your Cleveland Cavaliers. I know the city. I was in, we were in Cleveland with our guy Coach Walls, and our Uber driver was like
right when it was kicking off. I
really fired up
know.
about his Cavs, and then they just kind of shat the bed. How are you feeling? Poor
Really
Cleveland.
quite demoralized.
Yeah,
Really. I mean, to not even make it to like the conference, to not even be the conference champion is pretty much a bummer. I mean, it's a great showdown in the Midwest between the Pacers and the Cavs, but brutal. I mean, it was because it wasn't even like the drama that's happening with the Thunder. They're winning, they're losing, they're winning, they're losing, the back and forth. Like the Cavs just like didn't just like never like real failure to launch in the series with the Pacers. It was painful.
this NBA playoffs, the internet meme is like the script, right? Like, what is the script for the playoffs? And I think there has been, especially with the lottery and the fact that the Dallas Mavericks now have the number one pick, it felt very almost pre-written, the way that a lot of these narratives and storylines came together, which is, Luka going to LA, them kind of falling apart. Then you have Steph getting injured in Golden State. Like you really feel this moment of, speaking of next generation, like you're feeling this, oh, okay, like the old guard, right? The LeBron, the Steph, that sort of old guard is revealing itself for, that, speaking of the OKC series and the Indiana series, like these players are so young and so good. And
So
for the
yeah.
most part, a lot of people that are sort of casual watchers of the NBA that don't have League Pass, not watching it every day, like I've seen maybe like 8 Indiana Pacers games throughout the year. Like I don't watch
Yeah.
a lot of regular
Same.
season NBA. Like I watch the NBA from House of Highlights and from Twitter, like NBA Twitter, and from like podcasts, like hearing about games. I mean, I've seen so many Knicks games, I've seen so many Celtics games, Lakers games, but like I really like the Pacers team. I'm weirdly pulling for the New York Knicks, which is a strange thing for me. I'm
Totally.
a New Jersey.
I know.
I'm a New Jersey Nets fan. I will forever be a New Jersey Nets fan. I know that they moved to this borough in New York City that will not be named, but like um, the
Oh, I was
Knicks.
obsessed with Kevin Garnett, so I was always a Celtics. Like I had
Oh,
such a crush on Kevin Garnett my whole life. Um,
okay.
and
I like that.
so but I'm also rooting for the Knicks, which has been interesting.
It's been great for the culture. We've got Chalamet replacing Jack Nicholson. Like he's now the new. It's like
It is.
Chalamet is
He's
now Spike Lee
totally.
level New York Knicks fan, and Ben Stiller as well. Like the two of them have
Yeah.
kind of become the standard bearer. Um, it's been great. I mean, again, like as much as people were hating on Nico and this trade, this Luka trade, that moment in the season when that trade happened, I think what you also found is like people that don't typically watch the NBA during the regular season, when that
Yeah.
catastrophic trade happened, I think then everyone is like, wait, what the fuck just happened? And so I think that what
LA
you
went off.
is a lot of people like tuning in just for the sort of, you and I talk about this all the time. It's like you got to have this sort of drama, story, narrative, gossip that sort of that's around everything else, right? So that's sometimes what's missing from politics is like legislation
Yeah,
doesn't have the gossip around. Medicaid
totally.
cuts doesn't have the gossip around it. You know what I mean? Like Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper's book has the gossip around things. Unfortunately, what they're writing on is stuff that just doesn't matter because it's over.
Yeah.
Who cares? Let's
Yeah.
move on. You know what I mean? So it's weird though. My
Well, speaking
I have no
of
idea who I'm rooting for here on out, but I like to see the
Stephen
Knicks.
A,
I'd like to
your
see the Knicks
guy,
move on. Say that again.
Your guy Stephen A is getting a ton of political coverage. There's this big article about him in the New York Times. Have you had a chance to read it? About he basically wants the like political clout of a Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's on television for like 8 hours of the day. He's probably the most
It's
like
great.
most paid, like what's it called? Like the amount of words he says
Commentator.
on television, like word per minute and like dollar amount per minute on television. Stephen A is probably number one, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when you have that big of a megaphone and a camera in your face that long in a day, and you see someone like Donald Trump as the most powerful person in the world, what else would you think? But I
I
could
can
do
do that.
I could do that too. I don't blame
Totally.
Stephen A. I do not blame him
Totally.
in the least, you know?
Totally. It's so funny. Oh my God. What are you doing this
What did you
weekend?
think? What did you make of it? Because I don't know. What is your like, I watch Stephen A every day. I think he's the consummate entertainer. I think he's so good. Because the thing about Stephen A is like what we did today, we kind of picked stupid fights, which is something rare for us to do. Because that's better content. When people are
Mm,
agreeing with each other, that is so fucking boring, right? And
yeah.
so you'll find when I watch Stephen A sometimes, I sometimes think he's like, you know what? I'm just going to disagree with you. Just disagree with you. And I'm going to create a fight and I'm going to create drama. And he's a great entertainer. He's really good at this stuff. Do I think it will translate to politics? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I don't think that um speaking of Democrats or the people that we work with all the time, I don't know that surface level shit works as well with Democratic primary voters.
No.
I just don't think it's going to work.
I also don't think I there we've done such a disservice to like the public's knowledge of how difficult these jobs are. And
Yeah.
so it's also like Stephen A, you don't want to be president. Like you don't want that smoke, babe. Like it's terrible. Like I get it. You maybe get a $400 million plane from the Qataris, which I'm sure is going to be great.
That
But
does
like,
sound great.
but it's actually really, really tough, and you have a lot of responsibilities. At least ideally, like right now in Ohio, Jim Tressel, who's longtime coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes football program, and he is now the lieutenant governor. I don't know if you
Yeah,
know this, but he's the
yeah,
lieutenant governor of Ohio. And there's all this speculation. He's a legend in Ohio, right? He's like, we won 2 national championships, I think. Which should all Ohioans care about. And so we'll just like lay down in the street for Jim Tressel. And so the big question is like, is he going to run for governor against Vivek Ramaswamy and be the next Republican governor from Ohio? And basically, if he does, they know that everyone will vote for him. But apparently, all the gossip is Jim Tressel, even just from being lieutenant governor, a largely ceremonial role. It's just like, this sucks. Like, there's just so many problems, and everyone wants something, and there's no good answers, and there's no money, and people are sick, and they're dying, and the bridges are need help, and there's potholes, and everyone looks to me to solve. Like, apparently, he's just like, what is this? Like, this job sucks.
job sucks. It's not fun. It's also hard.
And it's
It's
so
hard.
hard, and no one is happy with you, and everyone either thinks that you're stupid or that you're not doing enough, or that you're like, it is so, so difficult. And so the like, but so like the Stephen A's of the world, it's like, I don't know how much appreciation. It's like, go for it. Stew up some controversy, do the thing where you're entertaining people just by getting them all riled up about you
Yeah.
even considering this, but don't do it because it's terrible.
You're not going to like it, you know?
You're not gonna like it, babe. You're not gonna like it. It's not fun.
It's not particularly
If
fun.
you're doing a good job, it's not fun. It's really
Yeah, well, that's
stressful.
the thing.
Like Barack Obama's face, day one, Barack Obama's face, last day of 8 years. Like the man looked, aged 25 years because he took the job seriously.
Yeah, oh, Barack
Nearly
Obama,
killed Joe
the
Biden.
scene, the scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade when he like grabs the chalice and he drinks the wrong chalice and he just like
Yeah,
turns into a skeleton. Like that was Barack Obama in like 4 years, not even 8 years. Because it's so hard. Like if you're
so
actually
hard.
committed to the job, it's so hard. The thing about Donald
It's
Trump, though, that's provocative, I think, and interesting to people like Elon Musk and people like kind of, you know, people that want the proximity or the actual power without any of the work, right? Which is, by the way, kind of like the way Silicon Valley works. It's like, oh, we're just going to buy
totally.
this company and we're just going to sell this company. It's like, we're not going to actually do the work. We're just going to throw money around. Donald Trump has not aged because he doesn't do anything. Donald Trump
Yeah.
is he is like the monarchy, right? Like he's like Queen
Yeah.
Elizabeth. He goes to
Yeah.
all of the events. He goes to, he goes on the plane that may or may not be funded by the Qataris. Like
May not be loaded with spyware.
yeah, he's in Mar-a-Lago. Like my man is just balling out. Like that is the way that he is running his administration, and he's handed it over to idiots like Stephen Miller and Elon Musk to all of these really diminishing returns, right? But you're right. I think the thing about Stephen A, the one thing I would love, I mean, we should have Stephen A on the podcast. We've not really gone out and tried to get
Sure.
some unique guests in a while. Like the thing that I would really want Stephen A to be is like, don't run, be like, be like our like whisperer. Be like the Democratic Party's whisperer. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that he could have more of a megaphone if he's the person going on Bill Maher and like giving him shit, or like he's going on Fox News and giving them shit. And like he breaks down like what Roy was talking with us, right? Like we have not figured out a way to do the 30-second soundbite. Guess what Stephen A does every single day of his
Yeah.
life? He figures out how to boil it down every day. That's his job. And so, I mean, if he were to run for president, it would be a really good exercise because I would like to see Stephen A break down immigration right now. I would like to see Stephen A break down DEI and Doge and all of these things. It'd be sexy. I don't think he would like doing it, but I think it'd be great.
I would like Stephen A to teach the people who have some semblance of what they're idea of what they're talking about as it relates to
Yeah.
immigration. Like I get he can spitball. I get it. But like teach people with the knowledge how to
Yes.
do what you do versus like him doing it per se. Like
100%.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I really like Stephen A. But I like him in his lane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in the same way that I don't listen to Kanye West's political opinions, and I don't listen to George W. Bush's opinions on art, despite the fact that he is now a watercolorist. It's like I just think people should stay in a lane where they have some expertise going, and like let's just respect them there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Kind of like how
I have to
David
go.
should just
I have to go, but
stay in his lane outside the Democratic Party. I think that that's what you're saying. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
I want him in the party. I just want him to do it like be the minister of sports and culture, babe. You know what I mean? Like let's find a way and then teach other people how to talk with cameras in their faces in a way that doesn't make them actively unhelpful to the
Yeah.
cause of democracy. Um
Actually,
I
that
have to
is, I mean,
go.
you have to go. I was just going to say, like, Ministry of Sports and Culture should be a thing.
Totally.
There should be someone who's in charge of sports and culture. There should be someone who's in charge of just Hollywood, too. Thinking
Oh,
about all the
so many
money.
countries around the world have that position.
It's crazy.
Before I go, it's been a big week for octoroons.
The biggest week for Octoroons. Can we talk about it? Oh my lord.
Incognegros are having a real time. We have the Pope,
Let's
apparently
go.
every redhead in the world,
Pope Leo.
um,
Let's go.
Haley
I love the man.
Steinfeld. Big deal.
Did
This
you
is
know about
all.
Haley's Octoroon status? Did you know about it?
I didn't. I
I didn't
didn't.
know about it either. It totally adds up though.
Totally. And like,
It
what a
totally
great
adds up.
casting job, guys. I'm
Such a
gonna see
great casting
Sinners
job.
again this weekend, but like, wow.
I always liked her. I always liked her. And I didn't know why. And now I know. She's
Yeah.
Octoroon. You know? Here we go.
Shout out to so many people who, the minute Pope Leo was selected, were like, that guy's black. There were so many black people who immediately were like, who's your granddaddy? Like, what? What are you talking about? And then to have it actually bear out with like real
I
genealogy
know.
was so delicious.
It's been the best, honestly, like the past 2 weeks. I mean, the whole Pope surprise. Like that was waking up to
Yeah.
that news. I have not woken up and chanted USA, USA at my television since the
In a
Dream
minute.
Team in 1992. It was the last time. I mean, that who knew? I had no idea that we were going to have an American Pope. Having an American Pope in this moment could not be more exciting. I'm not Catholic, and I want to be Catholic because we have an American Pope who's a Chicago White Sox fan, who's an Octoroon, who has already shamed JD Vance for his bullshit on Twitter. Like, what?
It
Like,
was
let
a
it go.
it was a very big day for the Venn diagram of people of mixed race that hate JD Vance. It was a
Just
very
you
big
and I.
day.
It's me and you. It was a big day
And the
for us.
Pope, and the Pope.
It's a big day. It was a big day
It
for
was a
Twitter.
really big day.
So good.
All right,
You
bro,
and
I gotta
Michelle,
go.
what were your last thoughts on Sinners? We didn't even talk Sinners.
I'm gonna go see it on IMAX. They like re-releasing it into IMAX this weekend.
You're
I
gonna see it a
saw it a
third
couple weeks
time.
ago. No, I've only this will be my second.
Oh, the second. Okay, okay.
Yeah, but I'm just harassing everyone to make sure that they see it.
So good.
And it's so good. You and Marina just saw it, right?
It's so good. Marina was petrified,
Yeah.
because she doesn't like scary movies. And then meanwhile, she's like crying throughout the whole thing. I'm like, Marina, when you're crying, it's not a horror movie. It's not a horror movie.
Confusing. It's confused. A lot's
Not a horror
happening.
movie.
I
So
know.
good. We gotta
I
talk.
don't
I
really
would love to
do.
have. Speaking of, like, we gotta, yeah, let's switch gears. Like, I'd love to have some creative people that worked on Sinners on the podcast. I have so many feelings and thoughts on Sinners. I'm also like a
I'm friends
vampire
with the
nerd.
production designer. I'll text Hannah and see if she would come on.
I love the film so much because it was so, like Coogler does all the time. Like, every choice that was made was so purposeful and intentional and thoughtful. And I'm such a vampire nerd. My dad growing up, one of the earliest things I remember about my father, I was like maybe 4 or 5, is he told me, he's like, Brad, when I was about your age, I thought I was a vampire. And I was like, what? And my dad like loves vampires. So like we watch all of these old vampire movies, bad vampire movies, like schlocky B, C-list vampire movies, but the sort of lore that they had,
Interesting.
specifically the you have to be invited into the house.
Yeah,
And
that was
Marina
cool.
didn't get it at first, and I was like, oh, like I just love all of the little, all
Yeah,
the
he killed it. They
little.
did such a good job.
They did such a great job. It was so good. So
All
everyone,
right, man. I gotta
sinners.
run. I thought I was gonna see you next week. Maybe I won't. And then we'll talk soon. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, follow.
Subscribe. Yeah, guys, we never ask you to. Please subscribe. Please give us the 5 stars. And also, like, there have been all these Obama alumni breakfasts, and everyone is so sweet. And they're like, man, I love the podcast. I love the podcast. I'm like, email your friends about it. Don't just tell me. So, yeah, get it out there. Tell people about the podcast, and we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye. Can I? Yeah, do you have to stop recording before I can leave?